everyone, and welcome into the Bear Down Buzz podcast. As always, myself, Eli, joined by Joe and Isaac. Fellas, we are 2-2 headed into week 5 with a matchup against the vaunted Carolina Panthers. They've had some struggles lately, and we took advantage of that in the last few years with the big trade. We all know the details, so no need to mull that over. But a lot of people throughout this week have kind of designated this game as a quote-unquote trap game. You know, it's just one of those games to where it feels like the Bears can capitalize on all of the advantages. But before we get into that, we will kind of look over this injury report. And Joe, if you have that pulled up for Chicago, that would be great.
Let me go find it.
And if you don't have it pulled up, I also have it pulled up, so it's no biggie
Okay,
either
no,
way.
I don't have it. You
Okay,
can get it.
yeah, for sure. I can go over it. So as of today on Thursday, Mercedes Lewis did not practice. I believe it was a rest day, a veteran rest day. Zach Pickens, defensive tackle, did not practice, a groin injury there. Terrell Smith, cornerback, did not practice, a hip injury. DeAndre Carter was limited with a rib injury this Thursday. Gervon Dexter Sr. was also limited. No specification on the website. Tevin Jenkins, also a rib injury, limited today. He did not practice yesterday on Wednesday, but limited today, so that's a good sign pointing towards Sunday. Montez Sweat was limited with an ankle injury the last 2 days, and Cole Kmet was limited on Wednesday, but was a full participant in practice today for the Chicago Bears. So, Joe, any thoughts on that injury report?
Okay, so I did also pull it up on Twitter. Twitter injury report as Dexter's injury as a hip injury. So that's important to know. Um, I think the one thing I want to point out is this is all season. Sweat's been on the injury report, which he's played in every game, which is good. But like, I don't know, him being on the injury report every week is kind of a bit of a concern, just because Uh, it's never good to always be hurt. Like, yes, he's playing through these injuries, but it definitely does impact how much he plays and how effective he is, even though he's been still pretty good through these injuries. But that was one of the things that stuck out to me right away when I saw that Sweat was on the injury report again this week. Um, and then I mean, the only other thing that sticks out to me is Dexter, because he wasn't on the injury report yesterday and he is today. Hopefully it doesn't get worse and he's able to play on Sunday. And then, no, that's it. I was gonna say Cole Kmet, but he was full participant today. Um, so he should be good to go. And obviously Tevin, we know for his ribs. Good that he was limited today. Hopefully that means he plays Sunday. But I mean, I guess I kept, yeah, no, that's it. Um, yeah.
Isaac, your thoughts on this injury report? Anything that sticks out to you for the Chicago Bears before I get to Carolina?
Not really. I'm just glad that it's getting smaller. The only thing I do want to point out is Dexter wasn't on the injury report on Wednesday, and he is today with a hip injury. So I don't know if this was something that he sustained in practice, or maybe he just woke up and his hip was hurting. Hopefully it's not a big concern, and he ends up not playing on Sunday, which I believe he will, since it was only limited and he didn't fully not practice. Um, and it's good to see that Cole Kmet is a full participant, because we really need him, especially when I feel like Caleb has been getting more comfortable throwing to him, and especially throwing to the middle of the field. Cole Kmet's basically the main guy right there for the Bears. So I wanted to ask you, Eli, what were your thoughts on the injury report?
Yeah, so really, as you kind of mentioned, this list is getting shorter and shorter, which is great to see. I do think the one thing that kind of sticks out to me is Zach Pickens. I think has not been active through 4 weeks, if I'm remembering that correctly. So you don't want to call a player a bust before you get to see them in action, but in the time that Zach Pickens has been here, it's been kind of a swing and a miss with him, just productivity and injury wise. We don't really know the caliber of a player he could be, and I don't necessarily remember what round he was taken in. So depending on where he was selected, maybe a bit of a swing and a miss by polls, but I think Dexter kind of masks that with the way he's played through 2 years. So that's always a plus, but you never want to see anybody not contribute in any way with being taken anywhere draft wise with injuries. But the other one that kind of sticks out is Tevin. Obviously, this line, while it did seemingly perform better without Tevin, Tevin's a guy that you can rely on at times. So if he's healthy, I think the Bears are better off anyway. And I do agree that Montez Sweat, you want him to be completely healthy. You don't want a guy playing throughout the year on a nagging injury that might catch up to him into future seasons. And that's a guy that we've tied a lot of money up to, and he's shown us a lot of production. So we don't want him to, kind of go through the rest of the year on a nagging injury. Hopefully he can get fully healthy, but it does sound like he's going to play on Sunday anyway. So do you guys have anything else before I move on to a huge list from Carolina?
Yeah, about the Zach Pickens thing. He was the first pick in the third round, so I am pretty disappointed in his production so far. I was expecting him and Dexter to kind of be like a 1-2 combo for the Bears, and I mean, I'm really happy that Billings has been that guy for us, but unfortunately, I don't think Pickens is going to be the future as of what I've been seeing right now. On the field, he doesn't look like he's producing, and he's just been injured this whole season, so. Yeah, that's what I wanted to add.
Yeah, so I completely forgot that he was a third round pick, so that makes it even worse. Just the fact that he hasn't played makes him feel like a fifth or a sixth round pick, but for him to be taken in the third round and to not contribute in any way to the Bears squad, not good news. But we'll kind of get into Carolina here. And I think if I just kind of go through here and make some highlights, I think that will take less time to get through all of these injuries. So in total for Carolina, 7 players did not practice on Thursday for the Panthers, and 9 players were limited. Some of the big names here, Josie Jewell at linebacker was limited or did not practice today, actually, with a hamstring and a groin injury. Shaq Thompson did not practice with an Achilles injury. Jadeveon Clowney actually did practice today. I read that wrong. So he was a full participant in practice today. Deontay Johnson, their wide receiver one, was limited today. Going through here, Robert Hunt, a guard, was limited with a hip injury. Nick Scott, a safety, was limited with a shoulder injury. And going through here, one of their centers, Andrew Rame, did not practice today with a concussion. So, and that's on Thursday with a concussion injury. So usually guys don't make it back in time from an injury like that. Miles Sanders did not practice today. He was not limited on Wednesday, so that's a new pop up for him with an illness related injury there. And one more, Tommy Tremble did not practice today, tight end for the Panthers with a knee injury. So that's just a few of their contributors. There are several more injuries. So any big names that stick out to you, Joe? I'll start with you for the Carolina Panthers. Already an ailing squad, but with a laundry list of injuries going against what seems a healthy-ish Bears squad. Any thoughts, Joe?
The one you missed, I don't know if. Well, there's a couple you missed. I mean, I know you didn't want to go through all of them, but DJ Wano hasn't played all year. He's been on the PUP list, and then Adam Thielen is also on injury reserve. So they're down. Their like second or third receiver who's also has been really good in the league. But the linebacker core being hurt should make it easier for the Bears to run the ball, which we'll talk about a little bit more later, and also hopefully attack the middle of the field with passing. So that's a positive for the Bears, but it sucks for the Panthers. Shaq Thompson won't play the rest of the season. He tore his Achilles last week. Um, so and then Deontay Johnson is a new one that I didn't know about. But I'm gonna guess that he'll play. I mean, who knows? You never know. But I'm gonna guess he'll play. And then Robert Hunt, that's probably the most important one that isn't on the linebacker squad because the Panthers offensive line has been really good this year. They're allowed the lowest pressure rate in the NFL last week. And I think Hunt's only allowed like 2 pressures all year. So if he's out, then that'll make it a lot easier for the Bears to get to the Andy Dalton, which will be important. We'll again talk about that a little bit more in a minute. But yeah, so my big three are the two linebackers and Robert Hunt.
So now to you, Isaac, any injuries that stick out to you? Another season ender that was pretty major for that squad is Derek Brown. I don't know if you were going to mention that or not, but I did forget to mention that one. So that's a big blow to that Panther squad. But Isaac, any thoughts?
Yeah, besides the injuries that are out for the season, like Joe mentioned, the linebacker core being, did not practicing today is pretty significant considering that we haven't been the best at running the ball. And this week should be like essentially like a get right week for running the ball, even though we did a good job last week. I do want to see more consistency. Maybe we could tally on another good week of running the ball. And then besides the two linebackers, again, like Joe mentioned, Robert Hunt being questionable is huge because this Panthers offensive line is really good, and it makes me really jealous as a Bears fan watching, you know, the Panthers with all their, problems right now. The one thing that they do have going for them is their offensive line, which is one of the things that we definitely do not have going for us. So we'll see. I was kind of concerned going into the season about our pass rush if they were going to be able to generate any pressure, and they really have done a great job this season. It's kind of like shattered my expectations, and I think Sunday will be a big test for the Bears defensive line unit. So I'm excited to see what they're able to do on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of mind-boggling when you think about the top tier offensive lines in the NFL. The Panthers, to give them credit where credit is due, they haven't had a lot go their way in the past few years, but they did invest a significant amount of money into that offensive line in the free agency period this offseason. And to kind of spell it out, this is a tweet from Brett Coleman, a great content creator with a lot of good information. It says, after week 4, your top 10 most efficient offensive lines in terms of pressure percentage allowed on true drop back passes, the Panthers lead the pack there at 16.5%, the best by 4%. The next closest team is the Indianapolis Colts. And then looking on the other side of things, the Bears are the 9th worst at 38.7%. And just for content's sake, the Patriots are at the very bottom at 54.7%. So just an interesting tidbit there. But to kind of get into this matchup, Joe, I will ask you your kind of thoughts on what the Bears need to do to beat what many consider an easy opponent, but we kind of discussed beforehand this might be a trap game situation. Andy Dalton has been playing well under Dave Canales. So what do the Bears need to do to limit this Panther squad? Joe, I will start with you, and then you can toss it to Isaac once you've given your thoughts.
So the first thing they need to do is doubt pressure Andy Dalton. Like you said, the Panthers have a really good offensive line. I said earlier that they allowed the lowest pressure rate last week at 14.3% or something. Well, Isaac did say the Bears have been doing a good job of getting pressure on the quarterback this season, or I think he said great job. I wouldn't say that. I think they've been doing a better than expected job. But last week, the Rams had a pressure rate of 21.9%, which was the sixth lowest in the NFL against, and that's against the Bears front. So while they've been doing a better job than expected, haven't been doing like a league shattering or anything numbers. Um, so they definitely need to pressure Andy Dalton because uh, when you don't pressure Dalton, he's a veteran like Stafford, and yeah, they're not the same caliber of player. He can still pick apart your defense if you let him. Uh, and the Bears just need to get that pressure on Dalton, so that doesn't happen. And then maybe Dalton will throw you a couple turnover picks. And we saw what happened last week when the Bears. Uh, oh, they only really. Did they get 2 picks last week, and it was a one? I know one for sure at the end of the game. Um, but They almost had a second. I know the second one of them got taken away as a Brisker stepped out of bounds. I don't know if they got another one after that or if it because they had more than one turnover. I know that.
Yeah, they had not to interrupt you, but they had the one where Brisker got out of bounds and then the game sealing pick. Brisker could have
Yeah,
had
those are the
two,
two
but
picks that they had one, and then they had a fumble,
They
a
also had
second
a they
sack
also had a
fumble.
strip sack fumble that the Bears
Yeah.
recovered. Yeah.
I knew the strip sack, but I couldn't remember if it was more than two interception opportunities. Um, but yeah, and then my other key, like Isaac said earlier, is we have to continue to run the ball successfully. We did really good last week. Well, we did decent last week. We go for like 200, but we did decently. They need to continue to do that. Shane Waldron cannot be like, "Hey, I showed you we could run last week. Let's just go back to passing." No, do what works, and you can beat this Panthers team, who is one the worst in the league right now at stopping the run. Yes, we were here 2 weeks ago with the Colts. The Colts were coming into the game the worst in the league at stopping the run, and players couldn't run on them. But hopefully this week, after getting DeAndre Swift going last week, we continue that. Uh, run the Bears ran a bunch more power slash gap runs last week. Um, they ran 13 gap runs, power slash gap runs to 11 zone runs. Although the big play did come on a zone run, the touchdown run by DeAndre Swift. It's I think running those power slash gap runs really tired down that Rams offensive line or defensive line, which they should do that again this week. They should run more uh, at the defensive line than like outside, run down the throats of the defense, especially without those linebackers. So yeah, keep the keep running the ball efficiently, and then Fisher Dalton are my two keys.
Nice. And then I agree with you, Joe. I do believe that's really important for the game. And um I'll highlight two other aspects I want to talk about. So the first one is I want to continue to see Caleb Williams improve. And I think last week, I don't know, you guys would probably agree with me, but I think he had his best performance against the Rams. He had a 106.6 passer rating. He was completing 73.9% of his passes, which is the third highest completion rate for a Bears rookie quarterback in a game since 1970. And then under pressure, when he was blitzed, he was 8 for 9 for 75 yards and a touchdown. So I just want to continue to see him improve, not make those mistakes that he was making early in the season. And then the other thing I want to mention is we're kind of getting into that portion of the schedule where the most of these games should be easy for us, or not easy, but we should win these games basically. I just want to highlight we're going to play the Panthers this week, and then we're traveling in London, playing the Jags, a bye week, and then we have the Commanders, which should be a really fun matchup. I had them as an easy win in my opinion. Now I don't know, maybe it's going to be a toss up, but we'll get into that later. And then we have the Cardinals, which are a good team, and then the Patriots. So, and we could get out of that stretch heading into week 10 against the Packers with at least like a 6-3 record. We have a good shot of, being in contention for making the playoffs. Because the Lions, with other success that they've had this season, they have shown signs of weakness in certain aspects of their game. I mean, the Vikings, I can't really say the same for them because they're 4-0 and they look excellent. But same thing with the Packers. I mean, they're also 2-2 like us, so we're not, out of it yet. So I really just want to see this Bears team handle business on Sunday. I don't want it to be like kind of like a game where maybe we win at the end and we're kind of like this win didn't feel good, like I don't know, like there's a lot of stuff that still needs work to this stuff like that. But yeah, Eli, I wanted to ask you, what were your thoughts on the keys to beat the Panthers on Sunday?
yeah, you lined it up perfect for me because that is exactly what I want this Bear squad to kind of do that we haven't seen them do yet this year. Score often score early and often and get the Panthers into a situation where they can't run the ball effectively. This is a squad with Chuba Hubbard of all backs that is averaging 5.4 yards a carry this season on 55 attempts, just under 300 yards so far through week 4. So get this offense in a rhythm in the first quarter and don't look back. Get up to the 14, 20-point lead to where you get Andy Dalton in those obvious passing situations, and they can't get back to what they're effective at, which is running the ball. So if this defense can kind of stop the run early and the offense can get clicking like we know it can, and it kind of did last week, we saw some more consistency from the offense. Obviously, still a lot to improve, and I think this is a week that they can do it. But if we can get Caleb Williams to take a few deep shots and run the time of possession and get DeAndre Swift involved and, like I said, score early and often, I think we've got a good shot to beat this team. And this should be a win. This is one of those weeks where we're playing an inferior opponent and we should beat up on them. I think it's kind of annoying to always think of the Bears as a team that can squeak this one out, and maybe we can get this win. And maybe, I'm tired of hearing the maybe. I think this is a week that the Bears can kind of show that they can be among the top teams in the NFC and the league as a whole. So this is a good opportunity for the Bears to kind of show that they are a team not to be messed with in this league. So that's kind of my biggest takeaway, is that score early and often and get the Panthers out of their rhythm, get Dave Canales out of his offensive rhythm, and get Andy Dalton shook and limit the Red Rifle revenge game. Joe, did you have something to say?
Yeah. I was going to ask you guys, what's one bold prediction you have for this game? Whether it be like a player stat line, basically, like a big play or something. Mine is that give me a Jalen Johnson pick 6, first of the season. I think that we get to Dalton and he throws a bad ball to Jalen Johnson, and then no one can catch Jalen Johnson down the sideline.
I like that. I like that a lot. Isaac, you go ahead. I'm still thinking of one. If you don't have one, then we can.
Yeah, I don't know if this is like a bold prediction, but I just really want to see Kyler Gordon get his first interception this season and then do that little, backflip Spider-Man pose. That would be so nice. I mean, I don't know, just personally, I would think that would be sick.
Okay, that would be really cool. I would not be mad if that happened. I'm gonna go on the offensive side. Give me a Keenan Allen 35+ yard reception to get the Bears into scoring position. I think if we can get Keenan Allen involved this week, I think that would be really cool to see. And maybe just another one just for fun. Give me Rome Odunze over 60 receiving yards. I know these aren't like super hot takes, but I think they'd be cool to see. Do you guys have any other ones?
No, I'm just gonna say that would have the stadium lit. Like everyone would be crazy. Like if to see Keenan Allen haul in a major pass from Caleb Williams like that in the home stadium. Oh my gosh, that'd be nice.
I know that you just gave 2 receivers to have big plays, but do either of you guys see DJ Moore finally breaking out this week?
I think
Yeah,
after
go ahead.
all, like, sorry, Eli, to cut you off, but I think after all the criticism that he's been taking this week, just from like his demeanor on the field and off the field, and his attitude, and people just speculating that he doesn't want to be on the team anymore and stuff like that. I think personally, I think he was just kind of joking around. At first, I was kind of like iffy on it, but now I just think he's fine. But I think he is due for a breakout game, and who better to do it than against his former team, right?
Yeah, let's talk about that for a minute, because it is something that I kind of wanted to bring up, and I know a lot of people have talked about it already, but I think, and this isn't just a Bears thing, it's a media thing. It's so annoying when a fan base takes a quote from a tweet and they turn it into something that's originally a non-story, and they turn it into something that's just completely out of the blue. Like, I was watching that press conference live as it happened, and just watching it, DJ Moore was laughing about the quote, and he's like, if we wouldn't have connected on that, then maybe we would have had a talk on the sideline. The reporters were laughing and everything, but then these aggregate accounts take those quotes and they put them here and they turn it into something, and then it becomes a whole storyline. But do you guys have any thoughts on that whole situation? I thought it was just blown out of the water, as social media kind of likes to do.
I mean, I see where you're coming from, but I also do think he was kidding, but he wasn't kidding. Like if if Caleb had not found him on that back uh on that play for that touchdown, they would have talked on the sideline because you have to when you're matched up against a linebacker. Like because the play happened, he was kidding. But if it didn't happen, that wouldn't have been a kidding thing. So you're right. We're blowing it out of proportion, but like it's not a thing that wouldn't have happened if the play didn't happen.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Like it would have been super frustrating if the play didn't happen, but it's tough to get into those hypotheticals because at the end of the day, it was a touchdown and Caleb did recognize it. But I do agree that, if there was a slight misthrow or, he didn't set his feet and it was sailed it over his head kind of thing, then yeah, they definitely would have discussed it. But uh I'm with you. It's tough to kind of feel it out, like, and it doesn't help that even before that play and that whole situation that people have been talking about DJ Moore's body language and his emotion on the sideline and that kind of thing. And I think just that situation as a whole, and people like to pick apart what DJ says just because of this whole storyline that we've had through this year. It is tough, but for anyone that's kind of just going out of their way to say, "Oh, I'm out on DJ Moore. I'm done with like this dude had 13 close to 1400 yards last season, and to me is one of the best receivers that the Bears have already ever had. So for people to say that they're out on him, to me is ridiculous, and it's just another example of people taking things and running with them. But do you guys have any more thoughts on this situation?
Yeah, I just think sometimes our fan base can be very pessimistic and it's like we get something nice and people just end up like tearing it apart, you know? Like DJ Moore, like he comes in here, he completely changes our offense around and then, I don't blame the guy because if I was a elite wide receiver and I had to play with, multiple quarterbacks each season and just not have any continuity at that position, like I would be a little upset. And I do agree with what Joe was saying about how if Caleb didn't connect with him, he would have that conversation on the sideline. And I would say maybe 99% chance that would happen. But at the end of the day, it's just this guy is a competitor. He wants to win, and sometimes people display their emotions differently than how other people do it. And also it's not, I know that Moore is coming from a good place because I don't think he's really necessarily mad at Caleb or the coaching staff like that. I think it's more of just mad on himself. I feel like he puts a lot of responsibility on his shoulders for this team to win. And when they have issues and troubles trying to get the offense going, I feel like he ends up taking a lot of the blame, like himself, like his mindset. And I don't think he should take all that responsibility. I mean, I think he's probably one of the best players on the Bears offense. So, I mean, hopefully this doesn't continue to be a trend where he's, frustrated on the sidelines and then people are gonna blow it out of proportion again and then this and that. I just wanted to ask you, Joe, did you have any other thoughts before we move on?
One thing. So someone mentioned this earlier, uh, in a thing I was listening in a podcast I was listening to. But these things happen in if you've ever played a sport, like your emotions run high and you get mad and it's totally like it happens. I know professionals and we think it shouldn't happen, but like it happens. Like I don't know. I I can't remember if this ever happened to me, but I wrestled and like I wasn't a very good one and I lost a lot. So I feel like sometimes I was upset afterwards. I wasn't, I was a, took it out on people, but like I was upset because I lost, not because I was mad at people. So that's basically what you were saying, Isaac. But like, yeah, if you've ever played a sport, you should be able to understand that it's emotions don't necessarily mean that you're always like mad at the person.
Yeah, I'm completely with you guys. The best remedy for frustration in sports is success. So maybe we can get a DJ Moore a Washington like performance last year from DJ Moore this Sunday. I think that would be the cure to end everything with the whole DJ Moore situation and get everybody right back on the same page. So hopefully this Sunday he gets that performance and we put this all to bed. So with that being said, going into Sunday, let's do some scoring predictions. Joe, I will start with you. What is your score prediction for this matchup against the Panthers on Sunday?
Okay. So I'm gonna go with let's go 21. See, I'm having trouble because I was listening to stuff earlier. Don't want to go with similar scores to them. Uh, I'm gonna go. I want them to win by 14, but I also don't want to go 24-10 because I've heard that earlier. Um, I think that the Panthers at least get 10. Um, let me go. Let me go 24-10. I think what I heard earlier was 24-13. So I'm going 3 points less. 24-10. I think the Bears get up early, which forces the Panthers to pass, and we get after Dalton and get a couple sacks, a couple turnovers, and we finally get our offense going more than we've had it all season. So 24-10 Bears. And we actually make it look easy for once.
I like
Isaac?
it. Isaac, yeah, go ahead.
So last week we beat Rams 4-18. I do think this is going to be the first week where we reach 30 points. I think it's going to be exactly 30 maybe. And then for the Panthers, it could go one of two ways. The offense can be flowing for Carolina and get some easy points on us, or it could be a really good defensive performance by the Bears, and they hold them to under 10. I end up thinking I'm guessing that it's probably gonna end up being like a 30 Bears, 21 Carolina, and I have the Bears winning. So I want to ask you, Eli, what are your score predictions for this game?
I think we're on the same wavelength today, man. I'm right there with you. I think this is the week, and it with our luck, it's probably gonna be and it's probably gonna end up the complete opposite, and we're just gonna look like dummies. But uh, I had in mind as you were talking, I was like, I think this is the 30-point week. So I'm thinking it's a 31-21 kind of game for the Chicago Bears. A lot of points for Carolina, but Andy Dalton I still think is a decent quarterback, and they don't have terrible weapons in Carolina. And as we've kind of mentioned in previous episodes, this defense has struggled a bit at times in zone coverage. So I think they do march down the field a few times and uh, make it a relatively close game, but I think the Bears are just going to be too much offensively this week. So give me 31-21 in favor of Chicago.
I will say, with all of our score predictions, at least we have the Bears continuing their 21 points or fewer streak. It'd be 11 games if they did it this week in a row.
Yeah, that works for me. I mean, I don't think, like I said, a lot of people have this game as a trap game, and we kind of talked about it beforehand. All the analysts picking the Bears in a clean slate. I think we're all kind of doing that as well. So, you know, kind of scary, but at the same time, I do have faith in the Bears this week to kind of pull it out. But um, any more thoughts on this matchup before we get into some other scoring predictions? All right. So remind me of these NFC North matchups this week. I believe the Lions are on a bye, and then
Mhm.
Vikings play the Browns,
No, they
Jets.
played the Jets.
Jets in London.
Yeah.
Okay, so
We'll go that
let's-
first because that's the first game of the night, the day.
there you go. Yeah, so let's start. I'll start this one. Vikings Jets. I think if this game was played at noon in the States, I think this would be a handily win for the Vikings. But given that um, I think Minnesota has longer to travel in this matchup, and the Jets, I think they've been playing better. I think they're coming off a pretty tough loss to Denver. So give me the Jets finally showing the Vikings to be human and Sam Darnold struggling against his former team a bit. I'm gonna go. London games always seem to be kind of low scoring, so I'm gonna go Jets. Jets 21, Vikings 17. And Joe, I'll
Wasn't
toss it to you.
I I watched that Vikings game. I recorded the Vikings game and watched it. They dominated, at least in the first half. The Packers would make a second half comeback, but that game was never really close. It just looked a lot closer than it was. It wasn't close. I'll talk a little bit more about the Packers in a minute when we get to that game. But I think with the way the Vikings have been playing with their defensive line, they're the top sack team, and they're like 2 or 3 in pressures. Uh, After the Jets' performance last week with their offensive line, I think they're gonna get ransacked. I think Rodgers is gonna be under a bunch of pressure. I think they're gonna get at least 2 or 3 sacks and a bunch of pressures on Rodgers. But that doesn't mean I think it's gonna be a blowout. I know that would lead you to think I would think it's a blowout. I think it's a little bit closer than like a 31-6 game. I think it's like a 27-17 game. Maybe maybe the Jets in the final have a chance to make it 27-24 in the final like 5 minutes, but they don't get down the field. Um, but yeah, I think 27-17 Vikings win. They 5-0. None of us are happy about it, but I mean, Sam Darnold's been playing great, so
Yeah, and I think this is an interesting matchup because it's a Sam Darnold revenge game, and at the same time that this isn't going to be in the States. Like Eli mentioned, it's a London game and they tend to be low scoring. And I kind of still view the Jets as not really a functional offense right now, especially with that loss against the Broncos. Uh, it's kind of like lose-lose for me either way. Because one, if the Vikings win, I hate it because I hate the Vikings. Two, if the Jets win, I hate it because I hate Aaron Rodgers. So I think it's gonna end up being a Vikings win because, like Joe mentioned, the defense is just way too good right now. And even if Darnold has his struggles against the Jets defense, I feel like the Vikings defense is just gonna pull out another victory for them. For the score, I would say maybe around 24 Vikings, 13 Jets. I think would be a reasonable score for that game. But yeah, I'm taking the Vikings on Sunday.
All right, you guys are traitors. No, I'm kidding. No, I don't have really any rhyme or reason other than the fact that it's a London trip, and I just think that this is a get right week somehow for the Jets, and it kind of proves that they're still in that race for the AFC. You know, it was a bad loss to Denver, no doubt about it, with Bo Nix only throwing for 50 yards and still getting the win. But I do think that the Jets still have a good core. And this, I don't think the Vikings are going to fall apart by any means, but I do think this is a week to where a team kind of exploits their weaknesses and shows the rest of the league that the Vikings aren't unstoppable. And it's just hard for me to make the Vikings 5-0. Like I can't do it. But with that being said, so I picked the Jets and you two pick the Vikings as we move forward into the next matchup, which is Packers Rams, I believe. So Joe, once again, I'll send it to you. Packers Rams, what are your thoughts?
okay. So this is tough because Jordan Love did not look good last week. He had a bunch of yards, but that's because they were down 28 points going in the second half. He threw 3 picks. None of the picks were great passes. One of them was a tip drill that he overthrew I think Luke Musgrave, their tight end, and Romeo Dobbs almost caught it, but it also went through Dobbs' hands. Then the other two were just bad balls. So he didn't have a great game last week, even though he had all those yards and 4 touchdowns. Um, and then with the Rams, like we went over them last week, they're really injured. So I think the Packers offense can definitely move the ball on them. But and the McVay and LaFleur connection is there. Um, that's just tough. I think the Packers probably have more than the Rams right now. So just off of that, let's go 20 21-17 Green Bay.
All right, Isaac, and I will toss it to you. Joe picks Green Bay. Who do you got?
I do want to ask you guys because I don't know. Are they playing in LA or are they playing in Green Bay?
Oh, I'm not 100% either. Let me check real
I'm
quick.
assuming LA because Packers played at home and the Rams played away, but
This is at SoFi Stadium, so it is an
okay.
away game for Green Bay.
Okay. Honestly, I think I'm gonna have the Packers winning this game simply because the Rams have too many injuries right now, and the Packers, after a loss, I feel like they're gonna be motivated to get a win, especially against a injury-filled team with Sean McVay. Um, I would say maybe for the score prediction, it would probably be like 17-10 maybe. I don't know. I feel like this is one of those games where everyone thinks it's going to be a high scoring matchup because the Rams and Packers tend to score a lot of points, and for some reason it's just not. It would- and Yeah, I guess the home field advantage is not really a big deal for SoFi Stadium because I mean, I live in near LA, and when I go to SoFi Stadium, there's not a lot of Rams or Chargers fans for most of the games. So I'm gonna toss it to you, Eli. What do you think? You're on mute.
Yeah, my bad. I was looking over here and just started talking. Okay, so to reiterate, I think Green Bay takes this one just because we've seen the last few years, with the exception of last year, that Matt LaFleur doesn't often lose back to back. So just for that simple fact, I think the Packers take this one. And from looking at their matchup history, the Packers have won the last four of these five matchups dating back to 2018. So it just seems like the Packers always have the Rams number. And another fun fact, this will be the 100th matchup between these two teams. So that's something, just a little interesting tidbit there. So maybe there's something there for either team to kind of want to win the 100th matchup. Pretty historical rivalry of sorts in the NFC there. So I will take Green Bay, but I think it'll be a closer one. I think it's one of these field goal games to where it shouldn't be as close as it is. And uh, give me Green Bay winning it 24-21 on a field goal. So, and then obviously Detroit is on a bye this week. So we at least win the bye week, and Detroit can't win anything this week. So do you guys have any other thoughts on these NFC North matchups or the Bears matchup against the Carolina Panthers this Sunday? All right. So I think that is going to do it for this week. This week's episode of the Bear Down Buzz podcast previewing this Panthers Bears matchup. Hopefully, when we return on Monday, it will be once again a victory Monday, and the Bears improve to 3-2 with a favorable stretch of games coming up. But with that being said, I think that's going to do it for this week on the Bear Down Buzz podcast. We will catch you hopefully once again on a victory Monday next week.